Coming live from the Village Ford Tough Studio. Boomer Esiason and Greg Giannotti. It's Boomer and Gio on the Fan. Simulcast across the country on CBS Sports Network and wherever you are on the free Odyssey app. Good Wednesday morning. Still in the middle of this heat wave and still in the middle of this losing stretch here with the Mets and Yankees. And yes, every single day that we start the show, I feel like we're talking about how these teams are bad and how they're losing and how I'm trying to put somewhat of a reasonable positive spin on it, because after last year, I told myself I was not going to go nuts in the peaks and the valleys after watching the Mets get off to such a miserable start, being one of the worst teams in the league to start the year. Gary Cohen himself saying rock bottom, and that team went all the way to Game 6 of the NLCS. But right now, it's just uglier and uglier. And here's another reason why I'm inching more towards like DEFCON 3 with the Mets is they're finding all sorts of different ways to lose. So last night, I'm thinking Frankie Montas is going to get his doors blown off. He doesn't. He gives you 5 scoreless innings somehow after having a 14 ERA in the minors. And they get out to a lead. The crowd's happy. Everything's going well. They're going to win the game. Nope. Here comes the bullpen. Kaboom. Done. Yankees, another situation where they can't win an extra inning game. Jazz Chisholm gets thrown out. It's just weird right now, man. It's weird, and bad news with Sean Manaea as well. I wanted to come back here and have a positive day with you today, Boomer. We'll find a way to do it. And we got the NBA draft with the Knicks not having a coach, which is great, too. Good morning, Boomer. How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing all right, G. And I understand your frustration. I was certainly frustrated, but and we can talk about the pitching all we want. I still say, and I know most Met fans are sick and tired of watching guys in the 5th through 9th order in the batting order.
Yeah.
Okay, I know that. But when you look back at last night's game and you look back at a lot of these games that the Mets have lost, the first 4 guys in the order have done nothing. And maybe, Juan Soto gets on base here or there. Maybe
Juan Soto's had a great June. He's the one guy who's
but the problem is that the guys around him are not.
Terrible.
And so he's not having an opportunity to drive in a lot of runs. He's scoring a lot of runs, as Keith Hernandez said last night. But the fact of the matter is if your first 4 guys are going to have 1 hit in I think 11 or 10 strikeouts between them and not get on base and not set the table, then your bottom 5 guys who ended up knocking in runs last night, that's the frustrating part. I mean, to me, you want your offense to be better than it is, more consistent than it is. And for the last, since they started with the Tampa Bay Rays, all the way through where we are right now, losing 5 straight games to the Atlanta Braves. Like, the Atlanta Braves are in their kitchen, man. They are in their kitchen. You could say whatever you want. You could say they're up there or they're in their kitchen. I'm going to say they're in their kitchen. And it's amazing how the Braves, who were just middling, get to the Mets, and all of a sudden they change and they become the team that gets the key hit, the team that gets the better pitching, the team that seems to play the field better, the manager makes the better decisions. I mean, it's just incredible what has gone on between these two teams this year. But it's not just this year. Like, we've seen this before between these two teams, and that's the thing that is really frustrating. Get out to a lead, build on that lead, you get a surprise positive performance from Frankie Montas, and then all of a sudden all hell breaks loose and you can't fight back. The offense in the last couple of innings after they had lost the lead was just like, all right, whatever. And it's not all right.
Yeah, and this is what this stretch of losing here, this 10 out of 11 has been, is when things start to go wrong, they never go back right. Whereas the Mets we were seeing in April and May, even when they face some adversity, they would battle back. The Mets we saw last year would battle back. Now it's, you get down 3-0, okay, now you're not going to come back 3-2 like the day before. You get up 3-0, they tie the game, they take the lead, you're not coming back, it's done. It's now like built into their psyche that they're somehow going to lose these games when they showed up to Citi Field in the first 2 months of the season expecting to win in every game, and they almost did.
Right, and I always think like Major League Baseball set the Mets up to get off to a great start, because if you remember, we were talking about who they were playing early on in the season.
Yeah.
And they were not playing a lot of the great teams, or teams that were ultimately going to have losing records this year. And then this was the stretch of the schedule that was going to tell us a lot about who they were. and whether or not they were going to be able to compete within their own division. And quite frankly, even though they did win a game in Philadelphia, Philadelphia hammered their pitching all over the place. So the Mets are in dire straits right now. It's June, and I would just say that I don't know really what Carlos Mendoza can do. I'm not really sure what a manager can do in this spot unless he's tinkering with the lineup a little bit here or there. But he is dealing with a mangled pitching staff. He's dealing with a kind of a I don't want to say lazy. The lazy is not the word. A top of the order that's really not doing much, with the exception of Juan Soto right now. And then you gotta believe sooner or later, they're all going to be hitting together, and maybe take some of the pressure off of this pitching staff. But the pitching staff pitched well against subpar teams, and now they're in the midst of June baseball. They're playing teams within their division, and lo and behold, their division is just absolutely destroying them. At least two of the teams are.
Yeah, I mean, well, they had the Phillies number early on this season. Yes, they did lose 2 out of 3 this last series, but it's been the Braves now. I mean, it's been the Braves for 5 in a row. I mean, and this team, and they're still, after losing 5 in a row to the Braves, they're still 7, 8 games up on them. 8 games
which is amazing.
After losing 5 in a row, that's how dead and buried they were until the Mets decided to give them some smelling salts. And I don't know if the Braves are going to continue this and be a playoff team, probably, because that's what they are. I mean, but to be, 21 games over 500, now sitting here at 12. I mean, if you told me beginning of the season they'd be game and a half out of first and 12 games over 500 at this juncture, June 25th, I'd say, okay, that's not bad. It's pretty good.
Yeah, but
the way that this has happened, they are trending in the wrong direction. And this is the one, if you want to make a criticism of the way that David Stearns has gone with the pitching, which I'm not ready to do yet because the pitching lab has been way more good than bad, is that those who said House of Cards it's looking right now, because when guys start going down, all of a sudden it's like you're counting on tomato cans every night. Yeah. Like, who is the guy now? So Sean Manaea, who was your horse last year, has a setback. Haven't seen him this year. Not going to see him for longer. Kodai Senga, who was leading the league in ERA, he's out. So when these guys start getting hurt, and now you're trusting, Paul Blackburn and Montas gave you something last night, but now trusting him and some of these other guys, Griffin Canning's going off a cliff. It's like, how does it stop if the offense is being this putrid?
Well, and you're throwing Dickie Lovelady out there.
That's right.
I mean, things are gonna start. It's going to be a long summer if things don't get better in a hurry, especially in that starting rotation. But also, like, again, we talk about this before every season. How many pitchers are teams going to use? You remember, like, did you make the starting 5 coming out of spring training? Like, that's a big deal. But, here we are in the middle of June. Is anybody thinking about who the starting 5 was coming out of spring training?
No,
of course not. They're thinking about who's going to be pitching the next game and where are we going to find an arm to put in a bullpen. That's basically what's going on right now.
Mm-hmm.
And it is really, really frustrating. McGill is on the DL or IL. Manaea on the IL, Senga on the IL. I mean,
and this is just starters. You got Kranick, obviously, who's on the IL in the bullpen as well. So yeah, I mean, it's not great. David Peterson had an opportunity,
and then you got Manaea. Manaea's look, if he's got something floating in his elbow.
Yeah, floating bodies.
You got floating bodies in your elbow. You know what that means? That means he's going to be done for the year.
Oh no! Don't do that. Don't do that. You've been
floating bodies in the NFL. I mean, in your elbow in the NFL. In your elbow. Floating bodies.
Yeah, I've heard floating bodies before. I feel like it's not as severe as you're
telling me. Yeah, put floating bodies. Google floating bodies in your elbow and see what comes up. Floating bodies in your elbow, and they're going to have to go in and get out those floating bodies.
Did they say, though?
You want to be throwing 94 miles an hour like a week later?
Yeah, I mean, Manaea pitched a lot last year. It was more than he had.
Oh, here we go. Now he pitched a lot last year.
No, he did, and I said it honestly.
Remember
CC
Sabathia pitched like 100.
Stop, let me finish.
50,000
I said it at the time. I was surprised that with David Stearns' thought process on pitchers, that he would take a guy who had one of his best years and pitched more than he ever pitched and bring him back, because that's against his whole thing. And he did, and now he's got floating bodies on
Floating bodies in his elbow, I'm telling you. It's no joke.
Floating
joke.
bodies and elbow. All right, hold on. Let me see what they say.
What kind of body is floating around? Is it a bone chip?
I don't know, man.
What do you mean you don't know?
Well, I mean, I don't know.
I mean, you're sitting here telling me that it's not a big deal.
What I said was I feel like I've heard that before, and it doesn't mean end of season. Like when you hear forearm, that means Tommy John. When you hear calf, that means Achilles. When I hear floating bodies, I'm thinking, okay, not a big deal.
Oh, not a big deal.
Well, do you have an example of a floating body turning into an end of a season
That's why
thing?
I told you to Google floating bodies.
Loose bodies in the elbow are fragments of bone or cartilage that have broken off and are freely floating within the joint space.
That's awesome.
These fragments can cause pain, stiffness, clicking,
Yep.
or locking in the elbow.
Yep.
I definitely have floating bodies in my knee now that I hear that, especially during movement. Treatment options range from conservative measures, like physical therapy, to surgical removal.
Well, let me ask you a question. If you do physical therapy and you have floating bodies, are those floating bodies going to reattach themselves? No.
Yeah, I just think it stops the clicking and the whatever.
Yeah, but where do they go? Like, where do the floating bodies go?
Who do I look like?
You
Am I Dr. Stephen Nicholas now?
Do you?
My Dr. Eric Freeman right now?
Right. Do you urinate those out just like you would if you had a kidney stone?
Am I Joe G right now? I don't know. What do you want from me?
Right.
I don't know. So, I mean, it doesn't sound like it's. You think he's going to be out for the year? God.
Floating bodies is not funny, man. Not a good thing.
I think he's going to be fine.
Oh, well, that's just one player, and that's just one player that may have a elongated stay on the injured list. The rest of the team is still here and not getting the job done. And I mean, the thing about baseball is, like, I like my team. If my team is a good team, which I think the Mets still are a very good team, I want them to be at least 10 games over 500. Never fall under that.
Okay.
Like, you remember they were talking about the Braves earlier in the season. Now they got to fight their way all the way back to 500. And if they played the Mets the rest of the way, they would. But they're still under 500.
Well, yes.
Are they? Yeah, I think they.
Yeah, they are. The Braves are 4 games under 500.
Right. That's what I'm saying. So they're still under 500. So for me, right now, for the Mets, they have to stay 10 games above 500. They have been. They got off to a great start. They got it. Their high water mark was what, 15 over 500?
The Mets, it was like 21.
21 over 500. All right. So now that's the number that I look at, and that would be the number that would really worry me if they get to that point where they start getting under the 10 game bulge that they have over 500.
10 game bulge.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
The 10
Sorry,
game bulge.
I don't know. That was just a word I just had on my mind.
The 10 game bulge. Yeah, I mean, for me, it's also how far you are out of first place is another big thing because I want to win this NL East really bad. So, all right, I'm gonna reach Anthony DeComo from MLB.com to see if these loose bodies are going to make you feel any better about what's going on.
All right, is he a doctor?
No, but an MRI results, and then David Stearns has a quote here, right? An MRI taken revealed a 7-millimeter loose body.
7 millimeter? That sounds like a big millimeter.
7-millimeter loose body in Manaea's left elbow. That's the bad news. The good news is that Mets officials don't anticipate this costing him more than a few additional days on the injured list.
Yeah, okay.
David Stearns says, quote, "Sometimes you can pitch with these loose bodies for your entire career.
Oh, boy.
I don't think it slows us down too much."
Oh, boy.
And then Manaea said, "I don't really have any frame of reference, never dealt with anything like this before."
Oh, boy. There you go. There you go.
And then he also said, "It's not like that serious, I guess. I mean, it is, but it's not like Tommy John or something like that. I don't think surgery's on the table."
So he's going to go conservative, and he's going to go with the rehab through physical therapy. I just like to know where the bodies go, these loose bodies, where they go after physical therapy.
You got a lot of doctor friends in your life. You can text these men, and you could say, "Hey, loose bodies, what are we dealing with here?" You're hammering me with these questions. I don't have the answers.
You're the one who brought it up.
I did not bring it up. I said he had a setback. I said he had a setback, and you were like, "What's floating bodies in his elbow, and what's that?" And I'm like, I mean, it didn't sound that serious.
How can
what
floating bodies in your elbow not be serious?
David Stearns is telling me that you could pitch your entire career with these loose bodies.
David Stearns could be saying that just so people get off his back.
Well, nobody's on his back.
I don't know.
People are on his back.
I mean, you just said you're worried about the pitching staff and the pitching line, but you weren't ready to kill it just yet.
No, I'm saying those who criticized it, saying it was a house of cards, are crowing right now.
When you say those,
who
are those?
You have two factions of fans out there. Just like, you get the Yankee fan, the people who can't stand Anthony Volpe, the ones who say that give him a chance, the ones that hate Aaron Boone, the other ones that say he's a good manager. You got the Mets fans that are like this David Stearns. He's playing with fire with this pitching lab thing, and he's getting these tomato cans out there, and it's not going to happen all the time. You have the other ones like, in Stearns we trust. This guy, he's done it so many times. I got all these examples. So when I say those, I'm saying the portion of the fan base that we talk to all the time and are in our lives that say you can't win a championship pulling guys like Frankie Montas off the schlub heap and throwing them out there all the time. Those are the ones that are saying, told you. And when Spencer Schwellenbacher and Spencer Strider and these guys are that the Braves have cultivated through their farm system are shutting you down again, that's the problem. And when Dickie Lovelace is what you got to throw at him.
Dickie Lovelace.
And here we are.
I'm telling you.
So there you go. That's what, those are those people.
Well,
those people.
Yeah, those people.
If anybody knows, it's those people.
But this is the Mets. Like, I always think, like, if you got to stay away from the 3-game losing streak. We always talk about that. And we always talk about saying, if you go 5-5 in your last 10, you're not going to be moving much, but you're just going to get through the season. You can't go 1-9, 2-8, 3-7 in your last 10. You just can't do that. You got to stay around 500 or better in your last 10. You know what I'm talking about?
I do know
because
exactly.
I know you look at this. I know you look at the standings, and in the standings they have it in their last 10.
Yeah, I've seen that before.
And I'm a big in the last 10 guy.
You are.
I want to look back a little bit because I want to see trending situations for the Mets. And right now, if you look their last 11 games, they're 1-10. That's last in Major League Baseball. You look at team ERA, 6.11. That's 29th in baseball. Team batting average, 211, 27th in baseball. Runs scored, 34. That's tied for 24th in baseball.
Yeah.
Runs allowed, 72. That's 29th in baseball.
Yeah, it sucks.
That shows you right there just how poorly that they have played over the last 11 games.
Now you want to be
every aspect of the team
stinks.
Every aspect is an absolute F-U-N-K funk.
It scared me for a second. You want to be right about these loose bodies, or do you want to be positive about Sean Manaea? Which way do you want to go?
All right, so this is all right, so which part of my Met fandom do you want?
No, well, I'm just saying, I have one of our doctor friends who knows about this reached out to me. Okay.
All right, I'm going to say
do you think this was a positive thing or a negative thing?
I'm going to say that it's a negative. Well, I don't know. He may be positive about it, but I'm just going to be honest and tell you that every time I hear one of these injuries, it seems like it's worse than it initially they put it out there. So I'm going to say Sean Manaea will be out for maybe not the rest of the season, but at least a month.
All right, so it's more negative than I was hoping. This response here from the doctor who's dealt with floating bodies.
Floating bodies.
He said problem with floating bodies is they can be indicative of underlying instability in the elbow. So it's not simply removal, it's dealing with what led to it. It's potentially more than just a clean out. So now you got me thinking negatively. I came in here, I'm like, it's not a big deal. Stearns told me it wasn't a big deal. Floating bodies, you could put your whole career. Now I got you, I got the doctors.
Yeah.
Dr. Freeman.
All right, well, I'm just telling you. Floating bodies is no joke.
All right, now I know. I was thinking it was, listen, I listened to David Stearns. He's my baseball Jesus. And he told me it wasn't going to be a problem.
See, here's the baseball. I'm holding a baseball in my hand right now.
Mm-hmm.
And when you throw the baseball,
yeah,
your shoulder, your elbow, your wrist, your fingers, it all works in concert with one another.
I've heard.
And if you got a floating body in your shoulder, it's going to affect your wrist, and it's going to affect your elbow, and it's going to affect your fingers. If you got a floating body in your elbow, it's going to affect your shoulder, it's going to affect your wrist, and it's going to affect your fingers.
Infest your fingers.
Infest your fingers, whatever. So I'm just telling you that floating bodies is a real deal thing.
Well, okay. I'm now more with you.
These are highly paid professional athletes who, what we have learned, I would say over the last, I want to say conservatively, the last 10 years, from Achilles to elbows to necks, to concussions, to everything else in between. Every single major league team, whatever sport we're talking about, tends to be very, very cautious about their players. Unless those players are in a no-win situation and they got to go out and play, like Tyrese Halliburton, like Kevin Durant, like Jason Tatum. If they have to play in the playoffs, it's a different story. The players will risk it. But if it's in the middle of the season, they're shutting the player down for 2 months.
Yeah, well, they said it will hopefully, David Stearns says it's not going to be 2 months. I'm going to hope that it's not.
Because if they go in there surgically and try to remove these things, which they can do, you got to give the elbow and you got to give the body a chance to heal.
You got to give the loose bodies a chance to
just get them out of there. To me, I would get them out of there. I'd have them on the operating table today and take them out.
All right, Boomer
and hopefully maybe he comes back in September.
All right, Boomer and Gio on the Fan and CBS Sports Network. Get a Jerry Recco update in just a couple of minutes. Just getting started on this Wednesday morning.